A nurse finds herself caught in an action-packed nightmare straight out of a movie. It all begins on a stormy night, when she rescues a man who doesn't even remember who he is. Now they must fight to survive together. As the shadows of the past close in on them, their only hope will be the trust they place in each other. The storm will pass. But the real battle is just about to begin. Lena Rivera was a seasoned ER nurse, known for her composure and courage. Hurricane Orion had completely gripped the city of Austin. Throughout her shift, she hadn't had a single moment to rest, attending to those injured by the storm. But now, despite her exhaustion, she had to get home. As soon as she stepped out of the hospital, the fierce wind hit her face, almost knocking her off balance. The rain was like a solid wall blocking her path. Struggling forward, she finally reached her car. She forced the door open and quickly got inside. The windows immediately fogged up, but Lena couldn't afford to lose visibility even for a second. She started the engine and began navigating through the flooded streets. The city was almost deserted. Most streetlights had toppled over, and a power outage had plunged everything into total darkness. Fallen branches and scattered debris made it difficult for her to see clearly. As she gripped the steering wheel tightly, her eyes caught sight of an overturned car by the side of the road. She hit the brakes hard. The car was lying on its side, its front crushed. Some of the windows had shattered and smoke was rising from the wreck. Lena's emergency training kicked in, and she instinctively jumped out of her vehicle. The freezing wind and rain showed no mercy, but she was now moving purely on instinct. When she reached the overturned car, she peered inside through a broken window. A man was lying motionless in the seat. Blood from a head wound had spread across part of his forehead. She needed to check his pulse. Grabbing the door handle, she tried to open it, but it was stuck. She put all her strength into pulling the door, but it wouldn't budge. For now, she didn't even know if the man inside was still alive. She paused for a moment, then looked around for something she could use as a lever. She found a metal rod lying nearby and wedged it into the doorframe, using it to pry the door open. After a lot of effort, the door finally creaked open. Lena quickly leaned inside and carefully pulled the man out. His head wound was still bleeding. She had to get him to her car. The storm was getting worse and her visibility was rapidly decreasing. Struggling through the wind and rain, she managed to carry him to her back seat. Her hands were trembling, but she knew she couldn't lose control in situations like this. She shut the door and got into the driver's seat. The wipers were practically useless, but Lena knew the way home by heart. The engine growled as the car sped up, and Lena braced herself for a difficult journey through the hurricane. Who was this stranger she was now transporting? She'd think about that later. Right now, her only priority was getting him to safety. As Lena drove with the man in her car, the rain grew even heavier. She thought about returning to the hospital, but the roads were blocked due to the hurricane, and help might take too long. Her house was closer. She didn't want to take any risks. Any delay could cost this man his life. She turned the wheel and headed toward her home. When she finally arrived, the wind made it difficult for her to open the door. She carried the man inside and laid him on the couch in the living room. She removed his soaked clothes, cleaned the wound on his forehead, and dressed it. His pulse was more stable now, but he was still unconscious. Despite her exhaustion, Lena didn't hesitate for a moment as she administered first aid. Her nursing instincts had fully kicked in. After a while, the man began to groan softly. His eyelids twitched and slowly opened. He stared blankly at the ceiling as if trying to figure out where he was and how he had gotten there. "Can you hear me?" Lena asked, her voice calm but slightly authoritative. The man slowly turned his head to look at her. There was a brief silence, filled only by the howling storm outside. I'm here. But where is here?" he asked, his voice weak and confused. "I brought you to my house." "You were in a car accident and hit your head," Lena explained, carefully observing his reaction. The man touched his head lightly, wincing as pain flashed across his face. "I can't remember. What happened to me?" He squinted, trying to recall, but his mind was foggy. "Do you know your name?" Lena asked gently, offering reassurance. The man furrowed his brows, searching his memory. After a moment of silence, he slowly replied, "Adrian. Adrian Blackwood." Lena didn't recognize the name, but she could tell he was serious. "Do you remember anything else? Family or friends?" she asked. Adrian shook his head slowly. "No, nothing's clear," he muttered. Short, fragmented images began to flicker through his mind: a stormy night, a female security officer, the moment of death, secret documents. The images were fleeting and confusing, leaving him feeling unsettled. Lena noticed his demeanor. His movements were measured and he spoke with a certain control. There was an air of elegance and intellect about him that made her think he wasn't just an ordinary man. He seemed well educated, possibly from a wealthy background. Yet, when she had rescued him, he hadn't had any identification, no wallet, no phone. "Well, if you remember anything else, let me know," Lena said, deciding not to press him further for now. His mind was already clouded and it was best to give him time. But one thing was certain, there was something about him that didn't fit the profile of a simple car accident victim. As Lena listened to the storm intensifying outside, she had an instinctive feeling that this was only the beginning. Adrian Blackwood wasn't just a name. His past and the mystery surrounding the hurricane was waiting for them both. While Adrian was trying to gather his thoughts, Lena opened her laptop in the living room. The name hadn't been familiar to her, but her instincts told her Adrian wasn't just an ordinary person. She typed Adrian Blackwood into the Google search bar and hit enter. The results appeared instantly. Several news articles and excerpts from financial websites stood out. Adrian Blackwood was the CEO of a major energy and technology company. According to the reports, he had come to Austin for business meetings and projects. However, one headline caught Lena's attention. An article published just a few hours ago stated that Adrian had been reported missing. Company representatives and local authorities had already launched a search to find him. Lena's heart started racing. The disappearance of someone so high-profile indicated that the situation was more serious than she had thought. She hurried back to Adrian. He was leaning against the couch, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. Lena hesitated for a moment before speaking. He needed to know the truth. "Adrian," she called softly. He slowly turned his head toward her. "There's something you need to know. I looked you up online. You're a CEO. You run a major company. And they've reported you missing." Adrian's eyes widened in shock. The expression lingered for a few seconds before he fell silent. He stood up abruptly and took a few steps forward, then spun around to face her. "No," he protested firmly. "I was running from something. Please don't tell anyone. Don't contact anyone until I understand what's going on. Lena. I'm scared. That's the only thing I can remember, fear." Lena took a step back, surprised. She could see the fear and determination in his eyes. Adrian took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "I saw something. Something I wasn't supposed to see. I don't remember what it was, but I know they're after me. This wasn't just an accident. If they find me, I don't know what will happen." Lena inhaled deeply. The storm outside continued to rage, but the tension inside had reached a similar intensity. She knew she had to make a choice: should she trust Adrian and hide him or notify the police? But the fear in his eyes stirred her instincts. She was certain this was part of something much bigger. "All right," Lena said, deciding not to ask more questions for now. "You're safe here for the moment. But we need to figure out what's going on." Adrian nodded slightly and closed his eyes for a moment. Yet, the fog clouding his mind hadn't lifted. Even though he was safe for now, he knew he had to remember the truth before the danger outside caught up with him. Even though the city was slowly returning to normal after the hurricane, the danger for Lena and Adrian was far from over. Lena kept Adrian at her house to allow his wounds to heal and his mind to recover. However, she had noticed an increase in activity around town with each passing day. Police and emergency teams were patrolling the streets, searching for missing people. Adrian's name and disappearance had become a key focus of the investigations. One morning, Lena was startled by a loud, urgent knock at her door. She hurried toward it, turning to Adrian and whispering quickly, "Hide somewhere. This could be trouble." Adrian swiftly moved to the empty room behind the living room. Lena took a deep breath and opened the door. Standing there was a police officer with his hood pulled down from his raincoat. He held a small notepad in his hand and observed Lena carefully. "Good morning, Miss Rivera," the officer said, polite but distant. "We're conducting an investigation regarding people who went missing during the hurricane. We're speaking with everyone in the area. Has anyone been living here with you or visited recently?" Lena's heart began to race. She kept her expression calm and shook her head. "No, I live alone," she replied without hesitation. The officer scanned the area with a hint of suspicion. His eyes wandered toward the living room behind her, but he didn't see anything unusual. There were a few accidents involving vehicles during the storm. "We're asking everyone to stay alert for any suspicious situations. If you see or hear anything, please let us know." "Of course, absolutely," Lena responded with a polite smile. The officer stared at her for a moment longer, then nodded. "Have a good day," he said before walking away. Lena watched him get into his car and drive off before quickly shutting the door. She exhaled deeply and returned to the living room. Adrian emerged silently from the shadows of the other room, his face tense and anxious. "Was it the police?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. "Yes," Lena confirmed. "They're looking for you. Your name might have come up among the missing people." Adrian's expression tightened. "That's not good. There's a reason they want to find me. It's not just because I'm missing. They're after me, Lena. But I still can't remember why." Lena saw the fear and confusion in his eyes. He was being hunted by people he couldn't fully recall from his fragmented memories. He didn't know who they were or why they were targeting him, but the danger felt very real. "No matter what," Lena said with a reassuring tone, "I'm not handing you over to anyone. But we need to help you remember. Maybe we can figure out what you're running from." Adrian relaxed slightly at her words. In the short time they had spent together, a strong sense of trust had formed between them. Lena understood that Adrian was not only fighting physical wounds but also the trauma clouding his mind. He wasn't facing this battle alone anymore. Together they would stand against the dark secret that threatened them both. The fog in Adrian's mind was slowly beginning to clear. In the silence of the night, shadows of the past played before his eyes like a movie. Harper Mills, the head of security who had been with him on that dreadful night. The events were finally starting to take shape. One evening, Harper had come to Adrian's office in secret. Her face was tense and anxious. She handed him a small USB drive, gripping it tightly. "Take this and keep it safe," she had said. "Trust no one, especially not the people on the inside. Hide it and wait for the right moment. If this information gets out, people will be in danger. Including me." As Adrian recalled Harper's words, the memory of her death stabbed through his mind like a dagger. The official report had called it a car accident. But now he knew better. There was no coincidence. Harper had uncovered a major data security scandal involving some of the company's top executives. These people had been selling critical security vulnerabilities to criminal organizations. And now, both Harper and Adrian had become targets. Piecing these fragments together, Adrian realized he couldn't keep hiding. It was time to tell Lena everything. In the living room, he noticed Lena watching him closely. Taking a deep breath, he began to speak. "Lena, I have to tell you everything. I remember why they're after me." Lena leaned forward slightly in her chair. "I'm listening," she said, her voice carrying a mixture of curiosity and concern. "I'm the CEO of Blackwood Solutions. But it's more than that. Some people within the company were selling confidential security data to criminal organizations. Our former head of security, Harper Mills, discovered it. But keeping that information made her a target. She warned me and gave me a USB drive with crucial evidence, everything that could expose them. Harper was killed shortly after that night. Now, the people after that information are coming for me too." For a moment, Lena was at a loss for words. The weight of the information and the danger they faced sent a chill through her. She narrowed her eyes slightly and asked, "Do you still have the USB drive?" Adrian nodded. "Yes, but I can't remember where I hid it. I was on the run before the storm. Everything happened so fast. But I must still have it somewhere." Lena exhaled deeply. "This information could be life or death, not just for you but for others too. I'll help you, but we have to handle this carefully. If these people really are after you, we need to be more cautious than ever." Adrian saw the seriousness and determination in Lena's eyes. The trust he felt toward her deepened even further. He knew he needed her help, but he also felt guilty for dragging her into such a dangerous situation. Still, Lena didn't seem like someone who would back down. "We'll get through this together," Lena said, her eyes shining with resolve. "But first, we need to find that USB drive." The storm had passed, but for Lena and Adrian, the real battle was just beginning. The threat lurking in the shadows could close in on them at any moment. When Lena and Adrian met with journalist Regina Tan, Adrian decided to lay everything out clearly. The gravity of the situation could no longer be hidden. "There's someone you need to know about," Adrian said, his face tense and serious. "Marcus Kane. He's my biggest rival on the company's board. He's the reason we're in this mess. He's likely the one who threatened Harper Mills." Regina listened intently. "Marcus Kane. I've heard rumors about him. They say he has connections to criminal organizations." Adrian nodded in agreement. "That's absolutely true. Marcus built a network to sell the company's confidential data to these criminal groups. When Harper discovered this, they tried to intimidate her. But she didn't back down and tried to get the evidence to me. That's when everything started. After Harper's death, I knew it would be my turn next." Lena frowned. So, the person trying to take you out is Marcus Kane? Yes, Adrian confirmed. He's not just a businessman, he's a very dangerous man with people under his control. He and his men want to silence me. If we can expose this evidence, we can not only bring him down but also save many lives. Regina nodded thoughtfully. This is going to be a huge story. But it also brings a serious threat, she said. I doubt Marcus Kane will let you leak that information without a fight. Lena took a deep breath. That's why we need to move fast. Everything could change tonight. After those words, silence fell. But it didn't last long. Lena suddenly heard the sound of vehicles approaching. In the distance, headlights pierced through the darkness, and more vehicles began to appear. Adrian looked out the window and his face hardened instantly. They're here. Marcus's men. How did they find us? Lena asked, her voice tense. They were probably tracking us, Adrian replied. We need to get out of here now. The three of them quickly moved to the back of the farmhouse. While Adrian and Regina gathered the documents, Lena armed herself and checked the situation outside. As the vehicles approached the farm's entrance, several armed men stepped out. They're armed, Lena said firmly. Adrian, we need to go now. Adrian grabbed the truck keys and jumped into the driver's seat. Lena and Regina climbed in and gunshots rang out behind them. Bullets whizzed past the window, showing just how dangerous the situation had become. Adrian slammed the gas pedal to the floor. The chase through the forest was intense. Marcus's men didn't relent, closing the gap with each sharp turn. Lena watched the pursuing vehicles through the back window, her shoulders tensing. They're getting closer, she shouted. Adrian gripped the steering wheel tightly and veered onto a narrow path. It'll be harder for them to catch us here, he muttered through clenched teeth. The truck twisted and turned between the trees, forcing the SUVs behind them to slow down. It gave Adrian a small but critical advantage. After a while, they emerged into an open clearing. The headlights of the pursuing vehicles faded from view. Adrian took a deep breath and finally brought the truck to a stop. Lena leaned back in her seat and shook her head. This just got a whole lot more complicated, she said. But now we know what we need to do. We can't keep running from them. We have to use that evidence to destroy their plans. Adrian looked at Lena. The resolve and courage in her eyes deeply impressed him. He knew now that he couldn't win this fight without her. You're right, Adrian said quietly. This isn't just about my life anymore, it's about the future of many people. Regina pulled out her phone and jotted down some notes. We need to find the right time and place to strike, she said. But remember, things are going to get even more dangerous. Marcus Kane won't back down easily. Adrian nodded. If he doesn't back down, neither will we. Before Adrian, Lena, and Regina could find shelter, they paused to rest in an open field. As exhaustion weighed on them, fragmented memories from the stormy night resurfaced in Adrian's mind. Suddenly he muttered, the USB drive. The drive? What about it? Lena asked. Adrian recalled, I hid it in my car under the gear shift. The police must have towed the car to an impound lot. Regina frowned. Retrieving it won't be easy. There will be security. Adrian nodded. But without it, we can't stop Marcus. They devised a plan. Around midnight, Adrian would infiltrate the lot while Lena distracted the guards. Regina would monitor police activity. At the impound lot, Adrian found a blind spot in the security cameras. Lena moved to the entrance to divert attention. While Adrian sneaked inside and reached his car, Lena conversed with an officer who grew suspicious. What are you doing here? The officer asked. I thought my car was here, but I must be mistaken, Lena replied calmly. Adrian retrieved the USB drive and slipped away undetected. He regrouped with Lena. Did you get it? She asked. Yeah. Let's go, Adrian replied. In a secure location, they decrypted Harper's files. The data contained security codes, schematics, and evidence linking Marcus Kane to organized crime. We need to infiltrate the data center to upload these files, Adrian said. Regina contacted the FBI. We have the evidence. Let's move tonight and catch Marcus Kane red-handed, she informed them. With the plan in motion, they prepared for their most critical mission yet. As midnight approached, Adrian, Lena, and Regina set out for the company headquarters. When they arrived at the building, Adrian and Lena quietly entered through a side door. Using the security codes Harper had left him, Adrian disabled the entry system. They moved cautiously through the dark corridors, both of them on high alert. Adrian's heart was racing, but he took deep breaths to stay focused. The plan's going to work, Lena whispered, trying to encourage him. Adrian gave a slight nod in response. They made their way toward the control room. However, as they reached the door, Adrian immediately sensed that something was wrong. The door was slightly ajar and a faint light was shining from inside. Slowly pushing the door open, Adrian saw who was waiting for him. "Finally, you've arrived, Adrian," Marcus said in a calm yet menacing tone, his eyes tracking Adrian's every move. "I knew you'd try to stop me after Harper, but I didn't think you'd go this far." Adrian took a deep breath. "Harper exposed your game and you silenced her. But it's over now, Marcus. I have all the evidence. Even if you kill me, the data has already been sent to secure locations." Marcus chuckled mockingly. "Oh, Adrian. Always choosing to stay honest and weak. You never learned how to be strong. Harper made the same mistake. And what happened to her? She's not here anymore, is she?" Adrian clenched his fists but kept his anger under control. "You won't get away with Harper's death or the rest of your crimes. It all ends here tonight." At that moment, the door suddenly burst open. FBI agents stormed in, quickly subduing Marcus's men. One of the agents spoke in a cold, authoritative voice. "Marcus Kane, you're under arrest for organized crime and endangering national security." Marcus's face froze for a moment. He tried to resist, but the agents swiftly forced him to the ground and cuffed him. "This isn't over," Marcus growled. Adrian stared at him with a calm expression. "Yes, Marcus. It is." All the evidence in the data center was collected by the FBI. The other executives and accomplices involved in Marcus's criminal network were soon taken into custody. At last, Adrian felt a sense of relief after the long battle. At the same time, the deep gratitude and affection he felt toward Lena became even more evident. As Adrian stepped out of the control room, Lena was waiting for him outside. A gentle breeze cooled the night air. When Adrian saw her, a smile of relief spread across his face. He walked slowly toward her. "It's over," Adrian said, his voice tired but calm. "We did it together," Lena replied, her eyes warm and bright. "You're safe now." Adrian took her hand and looked into her eyes. "You didn't just save this operation, you saved me, Lena. I'm so grateful. I wouldn't have made it this far without you." Lena smiled softly and shook her head. "You dragged me into a wild adventure with criminals, but I guess it was worth it," she teased. Adrian chuckled with her. In that moment, he realized that Lena was more than just a friend, she was someone who truly mattered in his life. He wasn't alone anymore. That night, the shadows of the past were finally left behind. Adrian and Lena had survived a journey full of danger, and the bond between them had grown stronger than ever. Now, a new beginning lay ahead of them. Together, they were walking toward a future free from fear and threats. A year after Marcus Kane's arrest, Adrian had sold his company and used the proceeds to establish the Harper Mills Memorial Medical Center. The center provided free healthcare to those in need and honored Harper's legacy. Lena had taken on an active role in managing the center. Alongside Adrian, she continued saving lives. The challenges and dangers they had faced had only strengthened the bond between them. "We made Harper's dream come true," Adrian said, looking at Lena from the center's garden. Lena smiled and nodded. "And we still have a lot of work ahead of us." Adrian gently took her hand. "Together we can achieve anything now." Under the starry night sky, they felt the peace of their new beginning and looked toward the future with hope. The shadows of the past had been left behind. Now they were building their lives on love and compassion. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Check out our other thrilling stories on the channel.